In news welcomed by Poland, the EU environment ministers have decided to ease the 2040 target for cutting planet warming emissions and set a new 2035 climate plan. But this trade-off is believed to benefit other areas, such as defense and deterrence, with the question of EU enlargement in the background. Rolf Nikel, former German ambassador to Poland, joins me on World News tonight to cover the latest on the climate, enlargement and rearmament. Good evening, sir, and thank you for joining me on the program.
Good evening. Thank you.
Pleasure's all mine. So as we look at the decision of the environment ministers, why do you think this climate goal was actually changed by them? And was that a motivation that was actually pushed to change? Why was this agenda actually pushed to be changed unanimously?
Well, I think in this specific case, different viewpoints are prevalent in Europe. Some countries want to maintain the previous commitments. Some others were reluctant. Some others thought that that would put an obstacle to economic development. So I wouldn't necessarily say that this is due to budget distribution considerations. Rather, there is a movement within the European Union that considers that some of the goals that were actually determined, were decided, went too far, and so we came up with a compromise, which I think is pretty good and a good starting point for Europe's participation in the conference COP30 in Belém, Brazil.
Mm-hmm. So the news of the change was very much welcomed by the Polish government. That's something that I've mentioned before. Why do you think that Polish government was so focused on postponing the EU's emission trading system?
Well, I think a country like Poland, with its specific economic concerns, with its specific economic structure as well, has always been a little reluctant with regard to very strict criteria. And now we see that there is a possibility of actually reducing this, the targets, not 90%, but 85% for those countries who actually invest in foreign countries into climate projects. So I think it's a good compromise. It's a good compromise between the different positions that we have in Europe. Germany, as you know, is a country which went very far, but it's also discussed in my country right now whether the objectives went too far. And so I think this is a good compromise. It's a good compromise that prepares our negotiators at the Belém conference in Brazil. So I think it's actually a good decision.
But do you think that the EU perhaps has arrived at a point where taking care of the local economy and focusing on it is more important than actually reaching the goals that were pre-established before when it comes to something that seemed to be a burning issue back in the day, the care for climate change and the results thereof?
Well, I think that it's important to maintain the targets in general. That we want, that Germany and the rest of Europe wants Europe to reach the goals that we have fixed ourselves. But the question is, how do we get there? So it's not so much the targets as such as the method which we use to get there. And there should be, quite frankly, some possibilities for the member states to do this according to their own development. And as I said, even Germany has been very much in the forefront of that. There is now a debate on these issues. And I think it's right that we have this debate because the economic situation is not very good in my country right now. And so we have to think whether on the one hand we have to reach these targets, these goals, but at the same time leave opportunities for business to do this in a way that doesn't hurt the economic development. And I think that's very important.
We also need to talk about the enlargement report because there is an idea floating around by the European Commission that there could be a proposed switching to a probationary period system for new countries that are joining the bloc, that are joining the EU, such as, for example, Ukraine and Moldova. In response to Marta Kosa's statement, we've heard from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who said, quote, Ukraine will not accept a second-tier status in the European Union and must be treated as a full member of the bloc once it is invited, end quote. Do you think that Ukraine, at this particular point in time in a situation that it finds itself, can't afford to turn away a potential EU membership, even if it involves some sort of a probation period?
Well, I think we should take one step after the other. Right now, we have the enlargement package, which has been presented by the Commission. And we have just started the process. Ukraine is a candidate country. Screening has been done on the issues, and now we have to start the negotiation process. And this is going to be not an easy one, taking into account the fact that it's a country in war, and that a lot has to be done. The Commission alluded, for example, to concerns about corruption, about the state of the democracy, etc. So I think we should address those issues one after the other. Let's start the negotiations. Let's look at what's on the table. Let's look on what the countries are doing, and then take it from there. I think it's much too early now to talk about any sort of probationary period or whatever. But we have to take into account, of course, the fact that backsliding has occurred in some countries. For example, Georgia has really taken itself out of the game, and that's not the issue with Ukraine. I think Ukraine's place should be in the European Union, and it needs to be determined now in very serious negotiations, which will take a very long time. Let's not deceive ourselves, and then get to membership and see what can be done. It's much too early now to talk about these other things.
Ambassador, one more question before we go. German defense giant Rheinmetall has begun construction on Lithuania's largest ever defense investment. I mean, we're looking at 300 million euros of an investment into ammunition plant. Do you think that by this very move, Rheinmetall could potentially stop Russia as an aggressor from attacking Lithuania and, by proxy, the Baltic states?
Well, I think no single company, be it Rheinmetall or any other, will be able to stop the Russian war machine. This needs to be an effort by all states in Europe and including the United States. We need to muster support for Ukraine. We need to support them militarily. We need to support them by common production of things, like ammunition and others, which is in the process of being done, and that is very encouraging that the industry is now also taking up the ball and investing and making sure that deterrence will actually work. But it's a common project of all of us, of the governments, the industry, and quite frankly also about civil society when we talk about resilience against hybrid threats. I think that's very important that we all stick together in order to address this challenge coming from Russia.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Rolf Nikel, former German ambassador to Poland, was my guest on World News Tonight. Thank you once again.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you. And so this would be all for now. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska, and I hope to see you back here on TVP World for more news and features in just a moment.